The scene opens in a small-town diner, the kind of place where locals gather and tourists seek comfort food. The atmosphere buzzes with laughter and the aroma of grilled burgers. However, this cheerful environment quickly shifts when a young waitress, named Jessica, approaches a black man sitting alone at a table. "Get out of here. This place isn't for you. Go back to where you came from." Jessica's words cut through the chatter like a knife, causing the diner to fall silent. Eyes turn towards Daniel, the man at the center of the storm, as he processes the shocking outburst. The tension in the air becomes palpable, and patrons hold their breath, waiting to see how Daniel will respond. The surrounding tables are filled with a mix of shock and disbelief. Some diners exchange nervous glances, while others stare wide-eyed at the unfolding drama, unsure of what to do. A few older customers whisper to one another, their brows furrowed in concern, while a family in the corner grips their children closer, sensing the discomfort in the room. As the silence stretches, the camera pans to Daniel, who sits frozen for a moment, feeling the weight of the moment. The initial shock of Jessica's words is evident on his face, but the diners can sense that he is gathering his thoughts, ready to respond in a way that could change everything. Daniel Thompson, a black man in his early 30s, sits at a cozy window seat in the diner, his attention captivated by his phone. Dressed casually in well-fitted jeans and a stylish jacket, he exudes a relaxed charm. With a warm smile playing on his lips, he scrolls through the menu, eager to indulge in the local cuisine he had heard so much about. This trip has been a long-awaited escape for Daniel, a chance to unwind and explore the quaint town he had read about. As he gazes out the window, he takes in the golden glow of the setting sun, casting a warm light over the bustling streets filled with tourists and residents alike. The comforting atmosphere of the diner makes him feel welcomed, a stark contrast to the chaos of city life he left behind. While waiting for his meal, Daniel taps his fingers rhythmically on the table, feeling content as he observes the lively interactions around him. Nearby, an elderly couple shares a laugh, while a family of 4 engages in animated conversation. The scene feels vibrant and inviting, creating a sense of belonging that he had hoped to find during his visit. Unbeknownst to him, however, the tension in the air is building. Jessica, the waitress, approaches his table with a forced smile, her demeanor suggesting something is amiss. As she takes his order, Daniel notices her hesitance. Her eyes dart away, avoiding direct contact. A feeling of unease prickles at the back of his mind, but he brushes it off, thinking it's just a fleeting moment in a small-town diner. In the background, other diners continue their conversations, unaware of the storm that is about to unfold. The cheerful chatter and clinking of dishes create a stark contrast to the dark undercurrents that lie ahead, setting the stage for a confrontation that will challenge everyone in the diner. As the minutes tick by, Daniel's anticipation for his meal turns into confusion and frustration. He watches as Jessica and other waitstaff bustle around the diner, serving every new customer while completely ignoring him. Curiosity piqued, he decides to call out to Jessica, hoping to remind her of his order. Jessica approaches his table once more, but this time her body language is noticeably different. Gone is the forced cheerfulness. Instead, she appears tense and rigid, avoiding his gaze as she stands before him. Daniel offers her a polite smile, but she seems focused on the counter, her eyes downcast. "I'm sorry, but that seat is reserved for someone more important," she states sharply, her tone shifting dramatically. "We don't serve people like you here. You need to leave and go back to where you came from." Her words hang in the air, heavy and toxic, as the diner falls into a stunned silence. The reaction around the room is immediate. Conversations stop, forks drop, and heads turn in disbelief. A young couple at a nearby table exchanges horrified glances, while an older man shakes his head in shock. The atmosphere shifts from a lively banter to a suffocating tension, with every patron now fully aware of the confrontation unfolding before them. Daniel's heart races, caught between shock and a simmering anger. He had experienced prejudice before, but the cold disdain in Jessica's voice feels particularly hurtful. Instead of reacting with fury, he takes a deep breath, his demeanor calm yet resolute. The silence in the diner feels thick, as if everyone is holding their breath, waiting to see how he will respond to Jessica's blatant disrespect. Patrons strain to catch every word, their expressions reflecting a mix of anticipation and discomfort. The weight of the moment hangs heavily in the air, and Daniel locks eyes with Jessica, ready to confront the injustice laid before him. For a moment, Daniel sits in stunned silence, processing Jessica's harsh words. The sting of her insult resonates deeply within him, and he feels a surge of emotions battling for control. However, instead of succumbing to anger, he gathers himself, rising slowly from his seat with deliberate calmness. The other diners watch in rapt attention, the tension in the room palpable. Daniel takes a deep breath, his heart steadying as he focuses on Jessica. "You think you can talk to me like that?" he begins, his voice firm but measured. "You believe you can dictate who belongs here when you don't even know me?" Jessica, arms crossed defiantly, stares at him, but her confidence begins to waver as Daniel continues. "You're not the first person to try to tell me where I belong, but you are the first to say it so openly and with such pride. Your words carry weight, and they reveal a lot about who you are." The room remains silent, every patron hanging on his words. Daniel's gaze shifts to the other diners, and he speaks with authority, addressing them all. "You see this, right? You're all just sitting there watching this happen. Some of you may agree with her, others are too scared to speak up, but this isn't just my battle, it's all of ours." As he speaks, the atmosphere begins to shift. A few patrons exchange uneasy glances, and the discomfort of the moment settles into their minds. Daniel's words resonate, challenging them to confront their own complicity in silence. He stands tall, his presence commanding respect, and as he locks eyes with Jessica once more, he feels the weight of the moment. Jessica's facade begins to crack. Her bravado falters as she realizes the impact of Daniel's calm yet powerful response. She opens her mouth to retort, but Daniel doesn't give her a chance. "2 years ago I lost my wife to a racist cop who thought she didn't belong. Just a few weeks ago, I lost my daughter to cancer. I came to this town to find some peace, and this is what I encounter." The patrons around him shift uncomfortably in their seats, some nodding slowly in agreement as Daniel's voice remains steady. "You all have a choice here. You can sit in silence, pretending this doesn't affect you, or you can stand with me and recognize that this is a problem for all of us." As Daniel's words linger in the air, the tension in the diner transforms. The weight of the moment becomes a collective realization, and the onlookers begin to reflect on their own actions, or lack thereof. Jessica stands frozen, her confidence evaporating, as she grapples with the implications of what has just unfolded. After Daniel's powerful confrontation, a heavy silence blankets the diner. The atmosphere, once filled with chatter and laughter, is now thick with tension and discomfort. Daniel's words hang in the air, resonating deeply within the hearts of the patrons. He turns away from Jessica, knowing he has made his point, and exits the diner with his head held high. As the door swings shut behind him, a ripple of murmurs begins to spread through the room. Diners shift in their seats, some still grappling with the weight of Daniel's message. An older woman at a nearby table speaks up, her voice steady yet filled with regret. "He's right, we've all been too silent for too long." A middle-aged man nods in agreement, adding, "It shouldn't take someone standing up to us to make us realize what's happening. We've let this go on for far too long." The realization dawns on many that they've been complicit in allowing such behavior to persist. Jessica stands behind the counter, her face pale and her hands trembling. The bravado she had moments ago is replaced by a wave of shame and regret. She hadn't expected Daniel to respond with such poise and strength, nor did she anticipate the ripple effect it would have on everyone in the diner. The weight of her actions begins to sink in, and she feels exposed, realizing the harmful impact of her words. In the moments that follow, patrons begin to speak up, sharing their thoughts and feelings about what just transpired. Some express their discomfort with Jessica's comments, while others reflect on their own experiences and the importance of standing against prejudice. The dialogue starts to shift, and for the first time, the diner becomes a space for open conversation about race and acceptance. Jessica, feeling the heat of the moment, can no longer ignore the truth. She feels the eyes of her coworkers and the customers upon her, and she knows she must confront what she has done. As the conversations continue to unfold, she realizes that this is not just about her. It's about everyone and the responsibilities they share in fostering an inclusive environment. The shift in the diner marks a significant moment, not only for Daniel but for all those present. They begin to understand that silence is complicity, and that change starts with acknowledging their own biases and taking action to ensure such incidents do not happen again. In the aftermath of Daniel's powerful confrontation, the story of what transpired in the diner quickly begins to spread beyond the small town. A teenager, who had been dining nearby, captured the moment on his smartphone, and within hours, the video goes viral across social media platforms. People from all over the country share the footage, discussing the impact of Daniel's calm yet assertive response to Jessica's blatant racism. As the video circulates, it garners attention from local news outlets, and soon national media pick it up as well. Interviews flood in for Daniel, who finds himself at the center of a national conversation about race, discrimination, and the importance of standing up against injustice. He speaks candidly about his experiences with racism, emphasizing the need for awareness and action in the face of prejudice. Back in the diner, customers who had witnessed the event begin to reflect on their own roles in the situation. Many express their regret for not speaking up during the confrontation, realizing how quickly they fell into silence. The atmosphere within the diner shifts. Patrons start to engage in discussions about the video, sharing their thoughts and feelings about the issues it raises. Couples and families who once avoided uncomfortable topics begin to share stories of their own encounters with racism, and the diner transforms into a space for open dialogue. Jessica, now fully aware of the consequences of her actions, feels the weight of the backlash. As the video gains traction, she finds herself facing an avalanche of criticism online. Comments flood in, some calling for her to be fired, while others express disappointment in her behavior. The reality of her actions hits her hard. She realizes that she has become a symbol of ignorance, and it's a label that she cannot escape. Despite the backlash, the conversations sparked by the video begin to create a ripple effect in the community. People start to organize discussions and workshops aimed at addressing racism and promoting inclusivity. Community members come together to learn from one another, and the diner becomes a focal point for these important conversations. As Daniel participates in interviews and discussions, he emphasizes the need for empathy and understanding. He encourages others to reflect on their own biases and to speak out against discrimination whenever they encounter it. His calm demeanor and articulate messages resonate with many, sparking a movement that extends far beyond the walls of the diner. The impact of that one moment is felt not just within the diner, but across the nation, as more and more people begin to reevaluate their own actions and advocate for change. Daniel's story is not just about a confrontation, it becomes a catalyst for a broader movement toward equality and justice, inspiring individuals everywhere to take a stand against hate and discrimination. As the news of the confrontation continues to spread, Jessica finds herself grappling with the fallout. The day after the incident, she arrives at the diner to a different atmosphere. The usual buzz of conversations has been replaced by an undercurrent of tension. Customers who once greeted her with friendly smiles now avoid her gaze, and whispers follow her wherever she goes. At first she tries to brush it off, convincing herself that people will move on. However, as she checks her phone during her break, she discovers that the video of her outburst has gone viral. The comments flood in, a mix of outrage and mockery. Many express their anger at her words, while others share their own stories of discrimination, highlighting the painful realities of racism. Jessica's stomach drops as she reads through the messages, feeling a deep sense of shame wash over her. She had never intended to be a symbol of hatred, yet here she was, facing the consequences of her actions in a very public way. The weight of her words feels heavier than ever, and she realizes that she can no longer hide from the truth. When she returns to work, the atmosphere remains strained. Some of her co-workers exchange glances filled with disappointment, while others openly express their disapproval of her behavior. The cook, Mark, who had always been friendly, approaches her cautiously. "You really messed up, Jess," he says quietly, his tone serious. "You need to understand how damaging those words can be." Jessica nods, her throat tight with regret. "I know," she replies, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't realize how hurtful it would be." As the day goes on, she begins to reflect on her actions more deeply. The reality of what she said sinks in, and she feels a surge of guilt for the pain she caused Daniel and the others who witnessed the incident. She realizes that her ignorance was a choice, and now she must face the consequences. That evening, after her shift, Jessica sits alone in her apartment, scrolling through social media. The discussions surrounding the video continue to grow, and she begins to see the impact of Daniel's message on a larger scale. People are coming together to speak out against racism, and she feels the sting of guilt knowing that she played a role in igniting this conversation. Determined to make amends, Jessica decides she can't simply apologize and move on. She reaches out to local organizations that focus on diversity and inclusion, hoping to learn and grow from her mistakes. She knows it will take time and effort, but she is committed to understanding the weight of her words and the responsibilities that come with being part of a community. As she embarks on this journey of self-reflection and education, Jessica begins to understand that accountability is just the first step. Recognizing her privilege and the impact of her actions is crucial in her path toward change. In the weeks that follow, she immerses herself in learning about the experiences of others, eager to transform her regret into action and contribute positively to the discussions surrounding race and acceptance. In the weeks that follow the incident at the diner, Jessica commits herself to personal growth and understanding, as the conversation around race and discrimination continues to flourish within the community. She realizes that she cannot simply apologize and expect everything to return to normal. Determined to make amends, she enrolls in workshops aimed at promoting diversity and inclusion. The first workshop she attends is facilitated by a local organization dedicated to combating racism. As she listens to speakers share their experiences, Jessica feels a mix of emotions: shame, anger, and a growing desire to take responsibility for her past actions. Hearing the raw stories of those who have faced discrimination opens her eyes to the realities that many people endure daily. She begins to grasp the profound impact of her words and attitudes. During the discussions, Jessica finds herself grappling with her own biases and assumptions. She listens intently as participants share their feelings about being marginalized and the importance of standing up for one another. Each story resonates with her, forcing her to confront her own ignorance. She realizes that her previous comments were not just careless, they were harmful and perpetuated a cycle of hate. With each workshop, Jessica becomes more engaged and committed to changing her perspective. She starts to ask questions, seeking to understand the experiences of those around her. She realizes that her journey is not just about her own growth, but also about how she can contribute to fostering a more inclusive environment for everyone. As part of her commitment to change, Jessica volunteers at community events that promote unity and understanding among diverse groups. She assists in organizing discussions and activities that encourage open dialogue about race and equality. Through these experiences, she begins to build relationships with individuals from different backgrounds, learning from their stories and perspectives. Though the road to redemption is challenging, Jessica remains steadfast in her efforts. She acknowledges that her past cannot be erased, but she is determined to use her experiences as a catalyst for change. As she continues to educate herself and actively participate in conversations about racism, she begins to feel a sense of hope that her actions can inspire others to reflect and engage in their own journeys toward understanding and acceptance. Jessica's transformation is gradual, but with each step, she becomes more aware of the responsibility she holds in her community. She understands that change starts with individuals, and she is eager to be part of a movement that strives for equality and justice. Weeks after the incident, the diner had settled into a new rhythm. Jessica continued her journey of self-improvement, carrying the weight of her actions, while working diligently to become a better person. The memory of Daniel's calm strength remained vivid in her mind, a constant reminder of the impact of her words. On a particularly busy afternoon, the bell above the door chimed, and Jessica looked up instinctively. Her heart nearly stopped when she recognized the customer who had just walked in. Daniel, he moved with the same quiet confidence as before, scanning the diner briefly before taking a seat at the counter. Jessica froze, a mix of panic and shame washing over her. She hadn't expected to see him again, especially not here, where everything had unfolded. The other waitstaff noticed her reaction, and a few patrons who recognized Daniel from the viral video began to whisper among themselves. The atmosphere shifted, charged with anticipation as everyone waited to see what would happen next. Taking a deep breath, Jessica approached Daniel, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her notepad. "Can I get you something to drink?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel looked up, his eyes meeting hers. There was no anger in his gaze, just a calm assessment. "Coffee, please," he replied simply. As Jessica poured his coffee, the diner door opened again, and three well-dressed men entered. They spotted Daniel immediately, and approached with purpose. "Daniel Washington," the lead man called out, extending his hand. "We've been trying to reach you for days." Jessica paused, coffee pot in hand, as she listened to their conversation. The men introduced themselves as representatives from a major investment firm, eager to discuss potential opportunities with Daniel. It was then that Jessica realized who Daniel truly was. Not just a tourist passing through, but a successful businessman, with significant influence. The revelation hit her hard. She had judged him solely on his appearance, never considering the depth of his character or his achievements. Daniel could have used his influence to destroy her reputation completely, yet he had chosen to respond with dignity instead. As the business discussion continued, Jessica found herself drawn into their conversation. Daniel spoke articulately about investment strategies and market trends, further emphasizing the contrast between who he was and how she had treated him. When the businessman briefly stepped away to make calls, Jessica found herself alone with Daniel. The moment she had been dreading had arrived. "I need to apologize," she said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "What I said to you was inexcusable. I've been working to educate myself, but I know that doesn't erase what happened." Daniel studied her for a moment before responding. "Apologies are easy," he said quietly. It's the actions that follow that matter. What are you doing to ensure you don't treat someone else the way you treated me? Jessica shared her efforts, the workshops, the volunteer work, the difficult conversations she'd been having with herself and others. As she spoke, she realized that this wasn't about seeking forgiveness, it was about accountability. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. That's a start, he acknowledged. But remember, change isn't a destination, it's a continuous journey. The real test comes when no one is watching. Their conversation was interrupted as the businessmen returned, but the exchange had left Jessica with a profound sense of clarity. Daniel's presence served as both a reminder of her past mistakes and an inspiration for her ongoing transformation. As she moved away from the counter, she carried with her not just the weight of her actions, but also the responsibility to ensure that such incidents would never happen again. Not by her hands, and hopefully not by anyone else's in her presence. As life in the diner continued to evolve, the atmosphere transformed into one of open dialogue and acceptance. Jessica had made significant strides in her personal journey, and many of the patrons had begun to engage in conversations about race and inclusivity. The diner became a gathering place not just for meals, but for discussions that challenged the status quo. One busy afternoon, as Jessica was refilling coffee cups and chatting with customers, a commotion erupted from the counter. A man, visibly agitated, raised his voice. "Why is this place filled with people who don't belong here?" he shouted, glaring at a young Hispanic waitress who had just started working at the diner. The room fell silent, and Jessica felt her heart race. She glanced around and noticed the discomfort etched on the faces of the other patrons. Some looked away, while others stiffened at the confrontation. The young waitress, her hands shaking, struggled to maintain her composure as she served the man. Jessica took a deep breath, remembering her own past mistakes. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, and she knew she could not remain silent this time. With newfound determination, she stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said firmly, her voice steady but filled with conviction. "You need to leave." The man turned to her, astonished. "What did you say?" he scoffed, clearly taken aback by her boldness. "I said you need to leave," Jessica repeated, her resolve strengthening. "You're not welcome here with that attitude. We treat everyone with respect in this diner, and your comments are unacceptable." The other patrons shifted in their seats, some nodding in agreement, while others looked on in surprise. The tension in the room hung thick, but Jessica stood her ground, her heart pounding. The man's expression transformed from surprise to anger. "You can't tell me what to do," he shouted, but the intensity of his fury seemed to wane as he noticed the growing support from the customers around him. Jessica remained calm, her gaze unwavering. "You can choose to leave now, or I will call security," she said, her voice resolute. As he hesitated, the young waitress, encouraged by Jessica's courage, found her voice. "Thank you for standing up for me," she said softly, her confidence growing. "I deserve to work in a place where I'm treated with respect." The man, feeling the pressure from the collective gaze of the diner, finally turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. A wave of relief washed over the room, and murmurs of approval began to ripple through the patrons. Jessica felt a sense of pride swell within her. For the first time she had stood up for someone else, using her voice to challenge prejudice directly. The diners around her began to applaud softly, and soon, the sound grew louder, filling the diner with a sense of solidarity. In that moment, Jessica realized that change was not just about her journey, it was about creating an environment where everyone felt safe and valued. The incident had sparked a renewed commitment among the patrons to speak out against discrimination, and the diner became a symbol of community resilience. As the applause subsided, Jessica looked around at the smiling faces, grateful for the support and the strong sense of unity that had emerged from such a challenging situation. The diner had transformed from a place of division to one of connection, and she knew that this was just the beginning of a much larger movement toward understanding and respect. Months passed since the incident at the diner, and the impact of that day continued to resonate throughout the community. Jessica remained committed to her journey of growth, actively participating in local initiatives aimed at promoting diversity and fostering understanding among residents. The diner had evolved into a hub for discussions about race and equality, and Jessica took pride in being part of this transformation. With each workshop and event she attended, Jessica learned more about the complexities of racism and the importance of empathy. She listened to personal stories, engaged in difficult conversations, and challenged her own biases. The process was not easy. She faced uncomfortable truths about herself and the society she lived in, but each step forward filled her with a sense of purpose. One afternoon, as Jessica was cleaning tables after the lunch rush, She overheard a group of regular customers discussing the recent changes in the diner. They spoke about how the community had come together to address issues of discrimination and the importance of standing up for one another. The conversations were filled with hope, and Jessica felt a surge of gratitude for the progress they had all made together. However, she also understood that the journey was far from over. One day, while attending a community meeting, Jessica encountered a familiar face. Daniel. He was there to share his experiences and insights with the group, and she felt a rush of appreciation for the strength he had shown during their first encounter. As Daniel spoke about the importance of continued activism and accountability, Jessica listened intently. He emphasized that change requires ongoing effort and that it was essential for everyone to remain vigilant against discrimination in all its forms. His words resonated deeply with Jessica, reinforcing her commitment to not only educate herself but to also inspire others to join the fight for equality. After the meeting, Jessica approached Daniel, grateful for the opportunity to reconnect. "Thank you for everything you've done," she said sincerely. "You've inspired so many of us to reflect and take action." Daniel smiled, acknowledging her efforts. "It's not just about inspiring others, it's about making a difference in our own lives and the lives of those around us. We all have a role to play." With newfound determination, Jessica resolved to continue her advocacy beyond the diner. She began organizing community events focused on racial justice, inviting speakers from diverse backgrounds to share their stories and promote dialogue. She reached out to local schools, encouraging them to incorporate lessons about inclusivity and empathy into their curriculums. As she stepped into this new role, Jessica felt a sense of fulfillment. She realized that her past mistakes did not define her. Instead, they had become the catalyst for her growth and commitment to creating a more equitable society. With each event, she witnessed the power of community coming together to challenge discrimination, and she was proud to be part of this change. Though the journey was ongoing, Jessica was no longer alone. The collective voices of the diner patrons and the community at large echoed her resolve. Together, they were not just confronting racism, they were building a future rooted in understanding, respect, and unity. And as Jessica looked around at the faces of those who had joined her on this path, she felt hopeful for what lay ahead, a brighter, more inclusive tomorrow.